So if you can't win the man, if you can't beat the man, well, stop the man from even being able to
On
be
the
voted
docket.
for. You just completely remove him out of existence from state to states. That's just a crazy. This is a crazy thing that they're doing now.
Just getting that breaking news about the Colorado State Supreme Court saying, based on the 14th Amendment and former President Trump's actions during January 6th, that he is not allowed to be on the ballot in Colorado. Just receiving word from the Trump campaign, a reaction to this ruling. Quote, unsurprisingly, the all-Democrat appointed Colorado Supreme Court has ruled against President Trump, supporting a Soros-funded left-wing group's scheme to interfere in an election on behalf of crooked Joe Biden by removing President Trump's name from the ballot and eliminating the rights of Colorado voters to vote for the candidate of their choice. Democrat Party leaders are in a state of paranoia over the growing dominant lead President Trump has amassed in the polls. They've lost faith in the failed Biden presidency and are now doing everything they can to stop the American voters from throwing them out of office next November. The Colorado Supreme Court issued a completely flawed decision tonight. We will swiftly file an appeal to the United States Supreme Court and a concurrent request for a stay of this deeply undemocratic decision. We have full confidence that the Supreme Court will quickly rule in our favor and finally put an end to these un-American lawsuits. Again, that's from a Trump campaign spokesperson. And obviously, we'll follow this as it heads up. We are talking about the polls tonight as this breaking news comes down.
That's crazy, man.
So the problem is the section of the law that they're using is for unelected officials.
Yes, not even presidentials.
It's not for the president or any elected official.
There we go. And here comes the lawyer. And this guy is common sense, man. Alan's Dershowitz. You've heard him talk? He's not even a Republican or a conservative. He's actually a leftist. But he doesn't sugarcoat. He doesn't play around. He just tells it like it is. This is what the law says. This is what the law says. And listen to his remarks, because he really exactly what you just said here. He puts it in perfect term. Look at this.
In the 60 years I've been practicing and teaching law, I've never seen a decision that is so anti-democratic and so unconstitutional. It is absurd. The idea that the 14th Amendment was supposed to substitute to the impeachment provision carefully drafted by the framers is wrong. If you want to impeach a president, if you want to make him not be able to run in the future, there's a provision. It requires a 2/3 vote of the Senate. But the idea that the framers of the 14th Amendment intended to circumvent that carefully drawn provision and simply allow any state to make up grounds for denying him the right to be on the ballot undercuts democracy. The 14th Amendment itself is very clear. It says in Section 5, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. The Congress, that's the United States Congress. There's no provision in the 14th Amendment for any state, or certainly any state court, to interfere with the right to vote by its citizens. So this is a terrible, terrible decision. It will cause disarray. It will, if it were to be affirmed by the Supreme Court, which I doubt it will be, it would cause distrust in the electoral process and would result in a repeat of 2020, where whatever the result of the election was, particularly if Trump were to lose, he wouldn't accept the loss, and he would have, in this case, some legal basis for questioning whether or not the courts had any proper role to play in taking him off the ballot of some states. Right now, he's only been taken off the ballot of a state in which he was going to lose anyway. But this decision, the logic of this decision applies to any state. It really says any state can disqualify Trump because they've made a conclusion that he was involved in an insurrection. Wouldn't even know what an insurrection is. He hasn't been charged with insurrection. He hasn't been convicted of insurrection. People will say that Biden was involved in an insurrection in allowing thousands of people to come across the border, or the people who were involved in the Black Lives Matter demonstrations, or the people today who are protesting in the streets all over the country against American policy toward Israel. Some of these are socialist revolutionaries. You have to have a definition of what an insurrection is, and the Colorado Supreme Court gets a C-.
It's debatable, isn't it? What the language is behind the insurrection.
Say it again?
I say it's debatable what that term insurrection means.
Well, it's not debatable because it has to be defined. You can't have something that's debatable as a provision for getting voters denied the right to vote for or against Trump. I want to vote against him, but I want the election to be a clean election. I want him to lose fair and square and not allow him to have an argument that, look, the Supreme Court of Colorado or other state courts denied the voters the right to vote for me.
And the Trump team has already said, we're appealing, we're going to the Supreme Court with this one. You look at the makeup of the Supreme Court, leans conservative, considered 3 justices have been Trump appointed. Does that give you insight as to how this case might play out if it does make its way to the U.S. Supreme Court?
I think this case will be decided not along party lines in the Supreme Court. I think this is such an extreme stretch of the 14th Amendment that he will get more votes than just the people he appointed to the Supreme Court, or even the 5-4 conservative majority. I suspect he'll get the Chief Justice, and I suspect he'll get some other justices as well. This is an extreme stretch. If you go and read the text of the provisions, it doesn't even apply to president. It says no person shall be a senator or representative or elector. And then it gives an oath of office. And the oath of office is not the presidential oath of office. It's the senatorial oath of office. So even the text of the Constitution doesn't make it applicable to the president. But the amendment itself was designed simply to prevent people who fought in the Civil War from running for certain offices. You know, Trump's old, but he's not old enough to have fought in the Civil War. So this amendment is not applicable to him. This was a one-off. This was not designed to create a new method of disqualifying people generally on the basis of a state court determination.
So, Professor, should the Supreme Court take this case, which they likely will, there are 3 Trump-appointed justices on there. How do you think that they'll rule on this?
Well, I think they will probably rule against the Colorado court. Whether they'll rule against them on procedural grounds or on substantive grounds, nobody can tell. But I don't think that we'll see an affirmance of this decision. I think what we're going to see first is a stay. The Colorado Supreme Court granted a stay early January. I think the Supreme Court will grant the stay until they can hear the case.
Yeah, Trump is, like we said earlier, like they're only making them stronger. Like this is going to be another case where Trump numbers and his polls are only going to go up. They're only going to go up. These people, man, the man has yet to be found guilty of an insurrection. With all the January 6th committee and all that stuff they've done, nope, not guilty. Not guilty. And videos are coming out showing a whole different story, a whole other side of the story. Twitter agencies were involved in this whole thing. Again, you still want to use and weaponize that against them for the reason why he's not supposed to be voting? Like, the state is doing that? Like, you're using the Constitution to stop a man from becoming president? And you talk about democracy, that's undemocratic.
And not even properly applying the law.
No, not even close. It's not meant to be used against a presidential candidate. It's not meant to be
or anybody who's taken the oath of office.
Not even, oh my Lord, they're gonna smack that down. But by the time they get through with that case, I think what's going on here, the Democrats is kind of like
this is a Hail Mary.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like they're throwing everything on the wall to see what sticks, you know. The goal is to wear out Trump, really. They just want to wear him out. By the time he's running to the court fighting for his, freedom and so on, spending millions of dollars. This is how they overwhelming Trump. And
problem is all they're doing is recharging his batteries.
Yeah. And I really hope
and pray that it backfires.
I think that's what's going to happen.